you might ask for more here, ask for more there, 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 and then boink, you find the one that says yes, and you've asked for more and you've got it. But we have to deal with the moment and keep our eyes on the horizon at the same time. And the moments where the people go, ew, that's a weird goal, or who do you think you are? Those are just speed bumps. Speed bumps. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dia Bondi Show. I'm Dia Bondi, longtime leadership communications coach and catalyst. Yes, I said catalyst. And creator Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, aimed at helping 1 million women ask for more and get it. And we're here in this podcast to help you resource your dreams. Yes, ask for more and get it. And try and have a blast while you're doing it, because it's easy to forget that part. And today, as every day, I am joined by my on-air producer, Baby Arthur. Hi, Baby A.
Hey, Dia.
How are you?
Yeah, the have a blast doing it part, that's very important.
That's friggin' hard. That can be really hard. You know, I love dealing in high stakes, those high stakes moments, you know, those like when something's gotta happen, you know, we want it to happen. But it's easy to get super serious, and we should be super serious, but it's also important we find moments and ways for us to have a blast here and there.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I'm in that right now. For those of you who may or may not know, I have a book proposal out swirling around in the world called Ask Like an Auctioneer. Interestingly, not the first time, like maybe the fourth time, I was in front of an audience talking about it was like keynote or a workshop, or I don't know what it was. I got a lot of like, hey, where's her book? I saw in the chat, where's the book? Where can I buy the book? And I was like, we don't have a book, but that may be changing soon. And, right now I can feel myself noticing that this feels high stakes for me. It's something I really want to do in the world, is to write and publish a book, Ask Like an Auctioneer, to make it easier for women to get their hands on this content. And, sort of as an artifact for all this thinking and work that we're creating in the world. And it's easy for me to not have a blast while I'm doing it, because it's hard.
Sure. And, I see that book jacket. I see it sitting in the window of the bookstore as I walk by.
That's a beautiful thing to say, because while I do also, and it feels like it's going to happen, there's like two different experiences of trying to make something happen in the world, to try to resource our dreams. One is, and folks will hear me, in fact, in today's episode, you're going to hear me talk about this a little bit more. We'll set it up in just a second. But, our eyes on the horizon, where we're looking at our goals and we're falling in love with our goals. And then we have our eyes right at the very next step, which can feel sometimes like a struggle, can feel, hard. And I'm even today, before we started recording this podcast, I was sharing a little bit with Arthur that I'm feeling down, and have my eyes like on the very next step, because that's what needs attention this week. And that very next step feels like a slog. It feels like, that very next step is full of things that are not, good enough or big enough or bright enough or have the right social currency or aren't, fill in the blank. And I can feel that, we're recording this on a Friday. I can feel that this weekend I got to spend time a little bit with my eyes on the horizon and remind myself, why I'm doing the thing that is requiring this very next step, so that the very next step just feels like a speed bump in the path to a goal, not like a defining moment in the journey, and try to have a little bit of a blast, to actually celebrate like, wow, I'm actually working on this next step, which is 25 steps from where I started last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there might be 25 more steps, but at least you're not at the bottom of the mountain.
Exactly. Although I have to say, sometimes I enjoy being at the bottom of the mountain, because nothing's happened yet. You haven't hit any roadblocks yet. Nobody said no yet. You're just looking at this big, beautiful mountain going, won't it be freaking awesome when we get there? It's the middle part that's actually the harder part for me? And I wonder, for those who are listening, do you love gazing at the big, huge mountain and saying like, oh my gosh, won't it be awesome when we get to the top? Or, is it the middle part where your feet start to hurt and you're noticing you're maybe running out of water, and, you need to, there's a temptation to take a break, but there's also a temptation to keep going because you don't want to slow down too much. And, that part where you feel like you've come a long way, but you recognize you still have a long way to go.
Yeah, pushing that boulder up the hill like Sisyphus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there.
Well, we're going to do a short intro today because we have a long thing to tee up.
We do.
Yeah, but first, you have a little something to share that you got after a talk that you gave.
Yeah, I got this note on LinkedIn from a woman who said, hey, I'm prepping right now to raise $100,000 to support the creation of 3 new women-led short films. Your talk today was so impactful for me. And I love this note from this woman. Thank you for sending this to me because, this is a perfect example of the kinds of ways we are resourcing our dreams. She's got a dream or a project in front of her to build, to fund 3 new women-led short films. That takes money. It takes lots of other things as well. And as we think about making the asks that matter to us to help resource these, if she can if she can get to that 100K in 5 asks or 3 asks or 6 asks instead of 10 or 15 or 21, or that the asks that she make get her so much, not just money, but also enthusiasm from the people who are in fact funding these, how much momentum, and maybe even give her the thing of having a blast while she's doing it, might help her keep her eyes on the horizon as well. So great example of the kinds of projects, maybe you listening right now have a project in front of you that needs resourcing. And it could come in the form of money. It could come in the form of, other champions. It could be an endorsement you need, an introduction you need, and access to a network. And in today's episode, we'll talk about the 4 different things, the pillars of strategic asking you can make to help resource the dreams that you have on deck right now.
Yeah, and if you have a question about an important ask in your life, you can give us a call at 341-333-2997, and maybe Dia will talk about it on the show.
Yeah, or even just let us know what's going on in your world right now. Yes.
Yeah, and as always, if you're into the show and into what we're doing, you can subscribe, rate, and review it on your favorite podcast app, and that will really help the Dia Bondi Show reach more people.
It is also super critical, and we sleuth through our conversations to identify what we want to talk more about and what might be valuable to you. But you can always call our hotline and let us know which episodes you like and what you'd like to hear more of, and maybe even who you'd like to hear from. And we'll try to get that on the show for you.
Yeah, and that number again is 341-333-2997. All right, so today we're going to be playing a little fireside chat that you had with a group of folks in property development, like big, huge property development.
That's right. I mean, like, think buildings, but also think like huge shipping yards, and think, big, huge capital projects and larger, big stuff, right? Maybe they're building homes too, but like big stuff. They're a national organization. I was so happy to have a fireside chat with their women's ERG, employee resource group, and we had a nice group of folks, maybe about 100 on the call, and it was a mix of folks, men and women as well, and it turned out to be such a great conversation and so well hosted. I really wanted to flip this into a podcast for you. It's a fairly long conversation. But I'm hoping that it'll give you another way of thinking about making the asks that matter to you in your life, and to stay connected to what really matters to you as you try to pursue your own goals and dreams.
Okay, so you talk about the 4 pillars of strategic asking. Tell us a little bit more about those, because it's blowing my mind, right? The idea of like thinking of yourself as an auctioneer a little bit when you're doing so what are those pillars of strategic asking?
Well, first, when you say think of yourself as an auctioneer, I just want to name really quickly, and then I'll talk about those 4 pillars. When we ask like an auctioneer, when we go to ask in our careers, thousands of conversations I've had with folks of all genders, across all industries, when I ask, okay, before we start putting your story together, what are you asking for? Like, and they'll tell me it's resources, it's head count, it's, responsibility, it's oversight over a project, it's a set of decisions, it's a promotion, it's whatever it is. And it's a vote, it's whatever it is. And once I understand that, I say, great, well, how much of that thing are you asking for? How much more money? How much head count? How much budget? How much, et cetera? How much investment? How much mentorship? And the answer is very often, well, Dia, what do you think I can get? And for years, I was co-conspiring with my clients to say, great question. What is it that we think we can get? And we would sort of name an amount based on what we thought we could get, what we thought we could get a yes to. In auctioneering, we don't do that. In auctioneering, we ask until we ask in order to get a no, and that no actually tells us we've hit the maximum potential of that ask, and then we actually sell it for a click beneath it. I mean, think about it. What do? When I auctioneer a piece of art, I'm saying, I'm looking for $2,800 here. Anybody in at 28? I got 3 people in at 28. I'll say, I'm looking for 3,000. How about 3,000? Anyone in for 3,000? I got 2 people in at 3,000. I'll say, great. How about 3,200? Who's in at 3,200? I've got 1 person at 3,200. And I'll say, great. How about 34? Anyone at 34? Nobody in at 34. I'm effectively asking actively in order to get a no. And not until I get that no do I know that I've actually maximize the opportunity of that negotiation in that moment. And I may ask for 34 and get no's across the board, and I'm going to settle for 32. But if I started at 28 and I had 5, hands in the room, and I said, great, somebody's at 28, I'm going to pick you, you win, I will have left, $400 on deck. So when I think about, for women in the room to think about, what it means to ask like an auctioneer, what it means is to actually actively seek rejection and then take a click below that. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with women who have said, I'm going to ask for X in my salary because I think I can get it. And when I ask, well, what do you think is going to get you rejected? They might anticipate, well, another 20%, and they go to ask for that 20% and they end up getting it anyway without even getting a rejection. What I want for women is to go 20% more. How about 30% more? And then actually, they said no to 30%, but they said yes to 22. So when we shift our gaze from what do we think we can get to what do we think is too much, we end up taking advantage of, or we end up surprising ourselves by ending up with a number that lives somewhere between the yes and the no. The yes we thought we'd get and the no we actually got. And it inevitably ends up with more. Now, when we think about the 4 pillars of asking, these are things I've noticed since I launched Project Ask Like an Auctioneer. I've had women come through my workshops and coaching circles who are running for office for their very first time and are asking for more, they're asking for more endorsement. They're asking for contribution. They're asking for their friends and colleagues' office space to hold, meetings about the work that they're doing, in their campaign. Women who are wanting to expand responsibility in their roles. Women who are wanting to make asks that are about investment in their businesses. They're looking for mentorship, access to networks, a million different asks, and those end up, as I notice, falling into 4 categories. And for those of you who might be listening, you might want to think to yourself, like, which one of these 4 might be a fit for my goals right now? The first, obviously, is money. And money can come in the form of investment, like I mentioned, consulting rates, salary, bonus rates, et cetera, anything with a dollar sign attached to it. The second category I've noticed that women can make and do make asks when we craft a strategic ask we can use to help reach our goals is authority. And authority doesn't always come in the package of a promotion. It could be owning a set of decisions over a particular project, or maybe it is something having to do with the way that you run your own work. Maybe it's about making the asks that help you go from being an in-house professional to an out-of-house professional successfully, so that you can be the author of every minute of your day. We're talking about authority here that can help folks reach their goals. And then the third category that I notice women can make strategic asks in to help them reach their goals live in the world of influence. And you can think of this in terms of visibility, right? So if folks on the call are looking at going from a senior manager to a director level role, I don't even know if that's a thing in your organization. I don't know what your structure looks like, but let's imagine, and you know that visibility, people seeing the work that you do is a critical piece of that. Where might you look for opportunities to gain that visibility through or gain influence by gaining visibility? So speaking at your all hands for the first time, being the communications manager for a particular project, submitting to be a speaker at a conference that feels a little too big for your britches, finding those stages that matter, building the relationships with other mentors that get you access to networks that grow your influence in a particular space. See that? Neither of these last two are anything to do with money, but sometimes they're actually more important to the goals that you have in your world. And then the fourth one I notice women make strategic asks around are balance. And I'm not talking about work-life balance. I'm talking about bringing into balance our inner selves with our outer context. The asks that we can make that help bring into alignment who we are and the work we're doing every day. Really simple example is, and actually this came anecdotally through my network. Somebody was in my workshop and she shared the ideas of Project Ask Like an Auctioneer with one of her colleagues. Her colleague was somebody who grew up in a revenue organization inside of a large company. She was wanting to make a career shift from sales as a sales professional to design. And she had an assumption that she would have to leave her company to do it. And through some peer coaching with this woman that was in one of my workshops, she told her, look, don't leave, ask. And she went to her manager and shared with her manager her dreams to move into a design career. And they were able to craft a plan for her to move from a sales function into a design function in the creative team in marketing. How wonderful for that organization to be able to retain that institutional knowledge that this woman had in the organization. And secondly, how wonderful for her to bring more into alignment who she really was and the work she wanted to do in the world. So these are some examples of that's one example of that fourth pillar of balance. And so money, authority, influence, balance.
Well, so this is a perfect segue because one of the things that you spoke about on a couple of the episodes of the podcast were you talk about letting your dreams be known by the people around you. And I love that. But Dia, that is terrifying because what if my dreams are too crazy? What if they're off base? What if somebody says, she's crazy. She can't go be in design, and you have this fear. I know you have an acronym about this, but you have this fear of before you kind of put that out there in the world. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, letting your dreams be known by the people around you. And how do you get brave enough to do that?
Beautiful question. So a couple of things. One is we have to fall in love with our dreams and our goals. We have to actively fall in love with them. Like they are our children, like they are our lovers in life, like they are our dream house, like they are these tender, special things that we revere and honor and treat as important. We have to actually actively treat them as important, like they're little separate entities to ourselves that we fall in love with and we protect and we stand up for and we champion and we coach and we speak to them as if we, in the way we want to be spoken to. So that I have found to be really important, a first step. So actively get into love with your dreams and goals hard, because you've got to love those more than you hate the possibility of rejection, the possibility of someone not liking them, the possibility of someone telling you they're the wrong goals to have, they're the wrong dreams to have, because you get to want what you want. And if you want a little bit more of a boost on this, you can listen to our podcast episode with Lindsay Gordon. She is a career coach for analytically minded people. And she talks a lot about, really letting yourself want what you want. and that what you want is never wrong. So step one to me is to fall in love with your goals. There's often when I do coaching circles for women as a follow-up to my workshops that I do, and we will, when we're looking at designing a strategic ask, we'll often slow down and go, tell me about your goals. Why is this important to you? Why is this particular dream important to you? And help me paint a picture and fall back in love with them. So that's number one. Number two, you can start small and let the people in your world who are going to say, yes, do that. Yes, girl. Let them know first and get a little bit of practice. There's very interestingly, and also let people practice speaking and letting your goals be known in contexts where you don't know what the outcome might be. Really simple example, and we're going to have her on the podcast, but Kara Golden, who's the founder of Hint Water. Maybe some of you enjoy Hint Water. And she's grown, into a CPG brand. They're doing sunscreen and so many other things. Anyway, her story is she ended up going to lunch for a job interview inside of, I don't know, Google or some large organization in the Bay Area. And at lunch, she shared with somebody that she was starting this small brand called Hint and da-da-da-da. And she ended up, instead of getting a job at that company, Google ended up being her first large account because the person at the lunch table said like, I'm sorry, you're doing what? And it ended up in her biggest first contract ever. So we have to fall in love with our goals enough, and then we have to just speak them into the world. Low stakes situations, high stakes situations. Interestingly, an internal example, if I can keep going on this one, was I was teaching a workshop actually at a company you guys probably use right now, a technology company, and at a woman, she was in the legal function in her organization, and she talked about her goal. First, I surveyed the room. What's your goal, everyone? What's your goal? And people raised their hand and told me. And she said, I said, you. She's raised her hand. I said, great. What's your goal? She said, my goal is to keep learning and growing. And I was like, bullshit. That's not a goal. That's an activity. Tell me the truth. She kind of looked over her shoulder, right and left, and she was like, I want to be general counsel one day. And everybody in the room exploded. It was like, yes, name it and claim it. Now let's fall in love with it. And now let's take the risk of letting the folks who can help you do that know that's your goal. And her first action ended up being to let her manager know that was her career goal. To let her manager know, yes, it's a risk. But what are we going to do? Keep it a secret? How can people help us when we keep it a secret?
Yeah. I want to go find my goal and like go feed it and water it and let it grow and fall in love with it. And I think that's such a beautiful way to think about those things too, because if you feel so strongly about something and if you so deeply believe it, to your point, that becomes a really important counterweight to the fear of what somebody might think about it.
Yes.
Otherwise.
And to you get to want what you want. And, when I say ask for more and get it, everyone, I don't always mean right here, right now in this negotiation, because you might not. You might ask for more here, ask for more there, ask for more there, ask for more there, ask for more there, ask for more there. And then boink, you find the one that says yes, and you've asked for more and you got it. But we have to think long. We have to deal with the moment and keep our eyes on the horizon at the same time. And the moments where the people go, ew, that's a weird goal, or who do you think you are? Those are just speed bumps. Speed bumps.
Okay. So I feel like I know, or I have a suspicion, I guess, about a goal of yours because you just did something really big. You just launched a podcast. And it's a podcast for women with goals and really for everyone with goals. And I want to know more about what inspired you to create the show. And I want to hear about some of the successes that you've had so far.
Well, for sure, I want to get this out into the hands of more folks. My everyday work is very intimate. I do a lot of one-on-one work. I do workshops in, small meeting groups, and I do speaking engagements. But they're, scale I have in mind. Like, get this into the hands of women as often and as quickly as possible. And so a podcast felt like the right strategy for me. And also, I like to talk a lot. I like to talk a lot. So that it was the right format for me for sure. And so for me that it was the right again, it was just like it was the right strategy to get this into the hands of women who otherwise wouldn't have access, who otherwise aren't working at a Google X and have an opportunity to take the workshop. Like, I don't really care if you're a woman who is a release engineer who's looking to expand her programming across 25 other high stakes projects at your fancy pants technology company, or if you are if you're a woman who owns a small bakery and looking to open a second store, or if you are a childcare provider and looking to, figure out how you can reach your goals faster. Like, if you're a recent graduate who is, opting for her very first job and feeling like she should take whatever she can get, like up and down the scale of impact, up and down the range of experiences and stages that women are in, I want to help, and a podcast is the best way to do it.
Amazing. I want to take a slightly different left turn, because there was I think this was a tweet actually of yours. You had this amazing tweet that when we take on too many tasks, it can rob us of the rewards that come from collaboration. And as someone who maybe gets a little bit, tunnel vision, just speaking for myself, of, do, and kind of get the little happiness that when you can check something off your list, and thinking about that actually as kind of robbing you of the fruits of collaboration. And thinking that sometimes when we don't ask, it's not because we're afraid people will say no, but it's because maybe we have this inertial drive to just do more ourselves, and that tendency is actually something that deprives us of an opportunity to grow. Is that a thing? I mean, was that what you were going for with that tweet? And sort of what are your thoughts on that, taking on too many tasks versus the opportunities that come from collaboration?
Yeah, I think it's just, when we bring more folks into our world and we share a world with them, we can see juxtapositions overlapping in a way that opens up something new for us. And it's easy for us to just sort of like not invite folks into our world and just get shit done, And I think that can be, when we collaborate with others, when we invite folks into our world, it can be a creative instigator as well. You started talking about the episode with David Guthmiller, who is amazing and is really interested in nurturing a creative community. You can also go to Invisible Talks, which is she and her partner launched that, and they have some content online that you can rewatch if you are someone who is looking to continue to sort of invest in your own creative instigation and in inspiration. But I think, keep lifting our heads a little bit and inviting people in will create an opportunity for you to see intersections you couldn't see otherwise, and can broaden, widen our peripheral vision and let more in. And when we do that, we might see something we otherwise couldn't see, with a very myopic focus on just checking the tasks off that we look at every day and feel like is the slog toward our goals.
Yeah, it almost feels like a different or a spin on another type of ask in a way, and one that maybe you're afraid that someone else will say no, but in this case, maybe you're afraid of your own tendency to not want to make that ask, to put yourself out there to see what happens.
Well, and here's the question: what would the ask be? What is the ask that we may or may not be making in that moment?
Well,
the ask to collaborate, the ask to have people.
Yeah. I mean, it's either it's an ask for help, but it's also an ask for input. It's an ask for, expanding, right? Taking someone's time, right? To get in the weeds with you and figure it out.
Yes. Beautiful. I had a woman in one of my workshops at Latinas in Tech last year, or before the pandemic, actually, so a year and a half ago. She came to the front of the room in my workshop, Your Most Powerful Ask Live. We always do a live coaching at the end after I teach the core principles of how to shape a strategic and powerful ask. She came to the front of the room. She was an in-house professional, but it was starting her own startup and was like pre-seed. and looking for mentors and folks to be her. I can't remember if they were exactly on her board, but the ask was she wanted feedback on her fundraising strategy or something. But what she really wanted was ongoing mentorship. What she really wanted was a group of mentors that would be happy to be invited into her world and explore her world with her, not just 15 minutes of a little bit of feedback on whether she thought, that her traction slide was good. And so being honest with ourselves about, who we want to invite into our world so we're not alone with this stuff, so we can make our dreams known to people who understand it, is really critical to, I think, also fortifying ourselves to be able to deal with those speed bumps we will hit on our way to our goals. It's inevitable. Ain't everybody gonna like it. Not everyone's gonna like your goals. Folks are going to bring their own shit to the table as they look at and hear about the goals and dreams that you have for yourself. And we can't let that stop us. But we can invite collaborators into our world who understand it and are willing to give us their heart and time and attention in a way that helps us stay on course. And that is a risk.
And that actually kind of reminds me a little bit more. Another element of the conversation you had with Deva was about this messy middle when you're in the process of creating something new or working towards our goal. And what you're talking about there about getting clear on what it is you actually want, I think is part of that messy middle of, right, doing that self-reflection. Or, I mean, what I think is so brilliant about Invisible Talks too is it's a way to kind of give some form to that messy middle and just try to create something, because that will further reveal what it is that you're actually trying to work towards. And so I'd love to hear more about your thoughts about that kind of messy middle and what can we do to sort of clarify for ourselves.
Yeah. Because you hit the middle part, which is messy and confusing, I'm actually in a few things right now in my business where I'm literally walking around going, where am I? What am I doing again? Things are not clear and there's nothing actually to do. I know actually what the goal is, but we're in that part where I'm like, I'm not sure if this fits. I'm not sure if that fits. I'm not sure if that fits. And there's nothing wrong. Nothing's broken. I'm just in that part. And it's easy for us to react and try to get clarity and do the thing. If you know what your big goal is, that part that are all the strategies that we're putting in place to help create that, to make that goal come true, can feel a little bit like, do I have all the Legos that I need? And there's nothing to do. Because it feels hard doesn't mean it's wrong in that moment. So that's one thing I think we always have to remember, that messy middle of like, oh yeah, this is the foggy part. I mean, I think novelists get into that, right? The first third of that book writing is great. And that middle third is like, whoa. And then the last third is like, boom, now I see the path home. The middle of our car ride home from driving from, a long haul from here to there, that middle part is tough. So you just have to but if you know where you're going, you can have that internal fortitude to continue to go. So that's number one. I think the other piece of that is that, we have to let ourselves have our goals. For some of, folks on this call right now, a goal might be, I want to be director in 3 years. For other folks, it might be a goal around, I want to understand more deeply these 3 things in and around my territory, or I want to have my name stamped on the side of a building at some point, or I want to be like, so our goals get to be our goals. And a big piece of being able to slog through the messy middle is to let ourselves have the goal that we want, so that the slog of the middle feels worth it, because the goal that it's getting us to is actually ours. I don't know if that was a little abstract, but there it is.
No, that just feels so apt. I mean, especially thinking about just relating it back to the work, at least that we're doing on the development side, where it totally does feel like, how will we ever get there? It's such a slog. And what is it that motivates you? And I think that having that touchstone, that vision, I mean, it kind of goes back to the conversation you said earlier about falling in love with your goals, right? And if you believe in it so deeply, it kind of adds some clarity to that middle part that's just hard.
Yeah. And I'll say too that like, it's really easy to get into goal shame. Like, the goal that I have isn't the right type of goal to have. And I've also noticed there's sort of 3 goal categories that I notice folks fall into. One are like, do you have experiential goals? The first 15 years of my career, my goal was about have as diverse Adventure was a goal. Everything I did, if it did not have a quality of adventure, I had to say no to it. So was that like a revenue goal? Was that a title goal? Was that really concrete? Did anybody else know whether I achieved it or not? No, but I did. So experiential goals are legit. If there are women on this call who are like, one of my goals, I don't care about being a VP one day or general or managing director. I want to work on the broadest set of diverse projects I possibly can. And maybe I'll stay as an associate my entire career. Who cares? What matters to me is that I got to build this and I got to build that and I got to build this and I got to work on that and I got to see this, this diversity of maybe adventure and experiences. That can be a legit goal. One of them can be much more about recognition and, the titles and income that are recognizable to the world to signify achievement. Great. Maybe you have those kinds of goals. And in some cases, a third category, I notice folks have goals that are really tied to like depth of knowledge and expertise. I don't care about building 10 different kinds of structures. I don't know if everyone here is working on buildings, but I'm using the metaphor anyway. I want to be the expert in this kind of structure. Or I don't care about playing every single instrument in a band. I want to be an absolute master at, stand-up bass. So mastery goals, experiential goals, and recognition goals. So if anybody on the call is thinking like, well, I'm supposed to I should probably at this time in my career be at a director level. Maybe your goals are experiential. And we can get off our own backs about the type of goals we actually like. And so that middle part in getting there feels like it's worth it because it's ours.
Mm-hmm. And it's getting us to where we actually want to go, not where we think we should be going.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know if that's resonant for folks on the call. I'd love to hear in the chat if folks, do you know your goal type? Do you know what kind of goals do you have? Are you a woman who's like, I want to have as many different experiences as possible? Or are you a woman who's like, nope, I'm going to be boom, I got like a real narrow track and it is going up and to the right all the time? Or are you a woman who's like, I want to be an expert and I don't care about managing people. I don't care about, diversity of projects. I want to have depth of knowledge.
And that all of those are great. Those are wonderful things, there's
100%.
Nothing wrong with either of them or anywhere in between, right? And or you could even go between goals, right? At one period in your life, you want to be very focused. Another period of life, you want to be all over, and that's okay.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful.
And that your timing is perfect, Dia, because we are going to save a few minutes at the end for any questions as well, if anybody wants to chime in. So be thinking about those. But I'm going to sneak in one more question because that's like interviewer privileges, I guess, which, by the way, so much more respect now for the podcast hosting gig because interviewing is hard. There's a lot going on. So not in the middle of it, but
there is. Yes, that's true.
Very, very impressive. So another episode of the podcast has this great interview with Myra Benjamin. What a cool person. And I love that she set you straight about the multitude of things that we're all asking for. And I'd love for you to tell that story because I think it's pretty incredible.
So Myra Benjamin, she was a director of engineering at Pandora, and she was the first person. I had made my dreams known to a guy named Paul Normington, who she and Paul were like kind of two in a box at Pandora here in the Bay Area. And I was just sharing with everybody. I had this thing called Project Ask Like an Auctioneer. I want to teach women, blah, blah, blah. And he passed it on to her. She invited me to come give a talk at their Pandora's Women in Tech Summit. So I went the week before to have lunch with her. No, not lunch. We were just going to have tea to talk about it. And I was like, Norma, like, Myra, I was like, I don't know if this is right. Because when I first thought of Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, I was really thinking about independent professionals and entrepreneurs. And I was really mostly focused on the money asks. Like, I want to put more money in the hands of women so we can change everything for all of us. If I can help a woman build a sustainable business by helping her courageously raise her consulting rates, yay, I didn't think of it as something that would apply to in-house professionals. And over tea, she said to me, she was like, girl, she's like, if you don't recognize the multitudes of asks, both money asks and non-money asks, that we live with every day to advocate for our careers, ourselves, and our goals in-house, you are missing it. And she was so right. I didn't really recognize those 4 categories of asking. In fact, most of the time now when I have conversations with women, money ask is like kind of lower actually, because the money asks they make often are an outcome of the authority they gain, the influence that they gain, the balance that they put in their lives, meaning alignment in internal and external selves, because they can be better when they're doing things they really love doing. And that sets up the foundation for making the money asks. So it was actually reverse of what I thought. And so she invited me, and we did it. And that was sort of the big igniter at the beginning. And she did really open my eyes that, we are asking for so many things all the time across the board. And we can not just ask for more and get it. We can use asking as a success strategy. And so I had to have her on the podcast.
She is totally right. And so we all owe her like a thank you card, because nailed it. That's for sure. And not to mention, she seems like a pretty cool person.
She's amazing. If there are folks here in the engineering space, she is, she's not in the structural engineering space. She's in the software engineering space. But if folks are interested, you can find her on LinkedIn, Myra Benjamin. She is now actually director of engineering at change.org. She is a woman really interested in advocating for change and for elevating women, and particularly women of color, in the space of engineering.
Awesome. Well, so if anybody has questions, feel free to either type in the chat or to use the raise your hand function on Teams, and I will do my best to facilitate from there. But while we're waiting, I want to talk a little bit about, I was poking around on your website and I saw about the Zofo. Can you tell us about the Zofo and some strategies? Because I think we all find ourselves there.
Yes.
Probably pretty frequently.
So the Zofo stands for the zone of freaking out. And when I was thinking through, I literally wrote it on a Post-it note the night that I figured out that Ask Like an Auctioneer was a thing. And what does that actually mean? I wish I could draw the visual for you right now, but the Zofo is basically when we go to make an ask, we ask ourselves, what do we think we can get? And that there's a relationship between courage and the asks that we make. The bigger the ask, the more courage we need. And the Zofo is the space between the ask that we're really comfortable making and the ask where we think we're going to get a no. And the question I have is, why don't we make asks that live in the that are above what we think we can get? And the answer is because they live in the zone of freaking out. That's that feeling of like, oh my God, I could never ask for that. Are you kidding me? That feels like outrageous. That if there's an ask that feels there, it is in your Zofo. But your Zofo is also your zone of potential. The Zofo is the place where all of the possibilities lie that are bigger than we think we can get for ourselves. And one of the key strategies, this is really silly, but one of the strategies that I use now, since I've been auctioneering for a couple of years, to help me make the asks that live in my personal Zofo, because I have one too. I just sent a proposal to Salesforce, and I was squarely in my Zofo when I put the number on the proposal. Yes, I was. And you know what's so sad is that they said yes without even blinking an eye. And you know what that tells me? Tells me I left money and opportunity on the table. When I don't get a no now, I'm like, oh, I made an ask that it was in the lower end of my Zofo. I should have pushed higher in my Zofo. So how do we do that? We remember that people are irrational.
That is.
And you should never shop from your own wallet. Because you think it feels big doesn't mean that other people think it feels big. And your rationale for why they'd say yes or no to it is not their rationale for why they'd say yes or no to it. So stop making decisions for other people. Make the asks that are in your Zofo and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Oof. Okay, so we have some great questions.
Great.
And I want to try and get to all of them. So we've got 3 of them. So starting with Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Do you have any suggestions on how to prioritize our goals?
Oh, you. Oh, that's tough. Um, Suggestions on how to prioritize our goals. So I would say to list out all the goals that you have, like maybe they're 3, maybe they're 5, maybe they're whatever, and then as honestly as possible to circle the one that is most resonant. Resonant. Meaning it gives you that thrill to look at it. It makes you smile when you think about it. It kind of scares the shit out of you a little bit. And that is the one that probably is the one worth making your dreams known about. It's probably the one that is easiest to fall in love with. And it's probably the one that you can tolerate the speed bumps on the way getting there because it is the most alive for you. So I know that is not a very, logical approach to it, but didn't I say a minute ago that people are irrational? I'm super irrational. So listing those out and circling the one that is the most alive for you, not the one that you think is the best, not the one that you think is the most achievable, but instead the one that is most alive.
So there's a really good, and I don't even know they knew it, but I think Nate's question is a really good follow-up to that, which Nate's kind of talking a little bit more from a negotiation standpoint, which is that, if you put something out there, and so finding yourself on that rejection side, does that ultimately reduce what you're able to get when you finally do land on something? Or he said differently, does being outside the compromise range with an ask reduce the size of the compromise range when you actually get there?
I gotta say, I have no idea. But the fact that you've touched the outer edge of the compromise range means that you are actually understand where the boundaries are. If you make an ask and we get a yes right away, we don't actually know if we're in the center of the field or if we're at the edge of the field or we actually touched the fence. So last year I sent a proposal off to work with an organization, and both in scope and price, they said yes. And I was like, okay, yay. And then I had an opportunity to send another scope to them for a different thing after we completed the first one. And they said yes. And I was like, damn, okay. And then I sent the third one and they said, ooh, that hits our budget. Like can you do it for, and I was like, yes, I can. And me and my operations manager were so excited that we got a no because now we know where the fences are. Now we actually know how big or how narrow the field is. So I don't have a way to answer that except that getting a no is a delightful thing because you know exactly where the boundaries are. Think about it. My kids say, Mom, can I have 7 M&Ms? And if I say sure, they're like, can I have 2 more? How about 3 more? But if they say, can I have 12 M&Ms? And I say no, and they say, how about 7? And I say yes, now they know where the boundary is.
Well, and poor Nate, because Nate and I work together, and I know that actually it's more often than not, it's Nate telling me no, actually, now that I think about it.
Good job, Nate.
So I gotta reverse this now and figure out where the fences are.
No, that's great. No, he's telling me where the fences are. That's fantastic.
All right. And so we have another question from Jack. Hi, Jack, about what recommendations do you have for people who are on the receiving end of the auctioneer's ask? What about men? So thinking maybe managers or anyone else.
That is such a beautiful question. Thank you for that. And actually, it's the other. So my book proposal is in the hands of an agent right now for Ask Like an Auctioneer. So all y'all better get on my mailing list so you can get the pre-orders when I actually get this book out into the world. You can go to diabondi.com for that. But the second book, I think, will flip the script a little bit on that. That's a beautiful question because I think as askers, we underestimate how much power we have. If you scroll through LinkedIn on your feed, you will find posts about people figuring out how to say no. People struggling with saying no. So I don't know. Can you repeat the question for me, or is it just like, what are my thoughts about the folks on the other side?
Well, yeah, what recommendations do you have, right? And I think maybe just projecting here a little bit, but now that we know, I mean, that somebody has this is the garden of their dreams, right? This is something that's so alive to them, and they come to you with that, or maybe they're on the other side of an auctioneer who's pushing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. What recommendations do you have for somebody who's receiving those things? How can we do that, maybe in a way that is not discouraging, but also understands the limitations that we might have?
Sure. Well, I think right there is understand the limitations that you actually have. That don't go to, like, understand that your no needs to be actually true and not just a reaction because someone is asking for something that is a little outside of your expectation. That's one. Like, come at it with a little bit of generosity, and which isn't to say give something you don't want to give. It's to say, like, where is this no coming from? Is this no coming from, I don't like that you are advocating for something that is outside of the scope of how I see you? Or is it coming from, we just don't have those resources? Is it true, or is it a bias? Like, that's something we want to note. The other thing is that we can say no with generosity by saying, no, not this, but here's what I can say yes to. And that will help you bring to the table a no that is true, even in the face of a desire to help or to meet the moment, that is right in front of you. Now, how we're going to do that is we're going to try and understand a little bit more about what the need is behind the ask. Because it might be that someone is asking you for something, assuming that the thing they're asking you for is the thing that will help them get to their goals. But when you find out, no, I can't do that, but help me understand what you're trying to create for yourself, or where you're trying to go. I might have something else that I can say yes to that feels like less of a tax on you. I mean, look, I am a confident middle career, woman working in the world of helping women ask for more and get it. Let's just say I get a lot of requests for advice and, pro bono coaching. And there's only one of me. So I have to say no. And what can I say yes to? So that helps me further my mission without taxing myself too much. So boundaries are real, and understanding what is the need behind the ask, and then seeing if there's something that you can do to meet that need without saying yes to the thing that's actually a no, might be a strategy for you to come at something with generosity and curiosity and honesty at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the conversation we were just having about, is your goal experiential, right? And understanding, like, are you asking for this because it's an experiential thing, and what other experiences can we bring to bear that maybe are more possible, right now?
In that way, we are joining and collaborating on solving a problem or reaching a goal together. Mm-hmm. And, it is really important to recognize that when we make an ask, we are putting pressure on someone. And we need to come at it. It's always a little struggle for me to talk about ask for more and get it, because it's easy to feel like it's all about getting. But instead, it is about ask for more and get it so that we can reach our goals together, so that we can be in relationship with one, recognizing the relationship that we're inside of that ask, and honoring that relationship on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One last question. I think it's the most important one. And of course, we only have 1 minute, but Lorena asks, how do I just get the confidence that I need?
Act. So I love this question. Thank you for this. And I have a little bit of a spin on confidence. In the 20 years as leadership communications coach, I have a lot of clients say to me, if I were just confident enough, I could X, Y, and Z on stage. And we have to flip it. Confidence is an outcome of action. It cannot be a prerequisite. If you use confidence as a way to hold your goals hostage, we'll never act. But if you are willing to take small actions tied to the goals that you have around a particular thing, that will produce the confidence for the next action. So let yourself make asks, let yourself do the things that matter while you're nervous, while you don't feel so confident. It's okay for us to act and expect confidence as an outcome of that, instead of holding it as a prerequisite and a necessity in order to act.
What a perfect note to end on. Dia, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. I so appreciate your time. And I really encourage everyone to check out the podcast. Can you imagine like a nice little a snippet of Dia showing up in your podcast app? It's a really wonderful way to, for me at least, I found it really helpful to focus and think about these really important concepts that are applicable to all of us at whatever stage of our careers that we're in. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. We ship a new episode twice a month, every other Wednesday, and we'll be adding new episodes actually, which will be live coaching conversations with folks who opt in for micro coachings with me. We'll turn those into episodes so you can see yourself in a real conversation with a real person struggling with something that you might be struggling with right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and an excellent weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
This is a production of Diabandi Communications, scored, mixed, and produced by Baby A. You can like, share, rate, and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you'd like Diabandi to answer any questions about how to make your next big move, you can call into the show at 341-333-2997. Thanks for listening.